It is time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at these sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us, our sports writer for The Guardian, Jonathan Yu, and senior writer for ESPN, Mark Ogden. Welcome along to you both. We'll speak to you very shortly indeed after we've run through the Back Pages as they stand this Thursday evening. So the Telegraph have a picture of airborne Virgil van Dijk. He rose highest to head home Liverpool's fourth in their 4-0 win over Tottenham for a 4-1 aggregate win. One giant leap for Slot. Liverpool cruising through to the Carabao Cup final. Back page of The Guardian seem to have taken very similar moments with their photographer. Reds reel Spurs in. Remember that Tottenham had led 1-0 from that first leg at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Van Dijk sees Liverpool robbed into another final. Also, they mention Chelsea fans accuse Todd Boehly, their co-owner, of breach of trust on tickets, and Shaw stays away. Bunny Shaw at the top there. City star pulls out of League Cup semi-final over racial abuse. To the back page of The Eye, which looks like this. Never in any doubt. Again, Virgil van Dijk in the picture there. Reds overcome first leg deficits to reach final at the bottom. Amram, I could not get Rashford to work the way I wanted. Yes, this is a story that is a gift that keeps on giving, isn't it, Ruben Amram? And onto the back page of The Sun. The Cup final. Scouse party as Mo and co blitz them. This time they've gone for Mo Salah, who struck a penalty to really put Liverpool well in control of their semi-final in the Carabao Cup. And to the Times finally, and Liverpool stroll to Wembley is the headline, and we've seen that post from Mo Salah many times, haven't we, this season? Such is his brilliant form, and they remind us that Newcastle versus Liverpool is on March the 16th at Wembley, and also the Amram story there. And right at the top there, Finn Smith era starts now, as Finn Smith will start in the same 15 as Marcus Smith for England as they welcome France to All right, welcome once again to Jonathan and to Mark. So, Liverpool, easy as you like. 4-0 winners tonight against Tottenham Hotspur to go through 4-1 over the two legs and meet Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final next month. Mark, let me start with you. I guess, is it perhaps a little bit surprising perhaps that it was so easy for Liverpool? Or did you actually fully expect it to be a comfortable victory given where these two sides are at right now?
I'm not surprised it ended as it did. I mean, I've heard people talk about 4 or 5-0 to Liverpool, so the fact it was 4-0 is pretty much where people were at. And I think it's not just because of Tottenham's kind of notorious frailty when it comes to playing against the big teams, but Liverpool are flying right now. So you've got Liverpool at the best, and Tottenham with injuries, with Tottenham's, not the mentality, but just the way that they approach the big games. Spurs always seem to find a way to mess it up. And I think going to Anfield when you've got a slender lead, it was always going to be an uphill battle. And Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham are not very good at keeping it tight and getting a result. So I'm not massively surprised. I think, Liverpool were always going to be the dominant side in this, but Spurs didn't even, I don't think they had a shot on target, or even, I think obviously Son hit the bar in the second half.
It doesn't count as a shot on target, does it?
No,
You're
exactly.
right, so not a single shot on target in the 90.
Yeah, exactly. So that is no way to play when you're in a semi-final of a big competition. So no, I'm not surprised, and I don't think the majority of people out there will be surprised that Tottenham, once they went behind, just caved in.
What about you, Jonathan? I mean, what was perhaps the most alarming aspect of what Spurs did tonight? Or do you feel that it is sort of fully understandable given their huge injury crisis and everything else that's going on under Ange Postecoglou right now?
Well, the most alarming part for me is that this is, I think, the first game where the belief seemed to have gone out of them. I think that the belief has been there all the way through. And I think physically this team has been shot for a month at least. But they've kept running. And we've seen them grind out some results. The first leg, obviously, of this semi-final. They showed a very different kind of game against Brentford at the weekend. This was the first time, and obviously, like, everyone's losing to Liverpool this season, right? Spurs, a team like Spurs, are going to lose to a team like Liverpool. But the way they kind of acquiesced to it, this was basically their season on the line, pretty much. And the lack of conviction, the way they pretty much acquiesced to Liverpool taking control of the game, that I think is new. That suggests to me that for as much as they've been flogged to death this season with a threadbare squad, that the players themselves look like they're beginning to lose a little bit of belief in the project, in their season, in faith that they can get out of this predicament, that there are solutions. That was the first thing. That was the first time I think I've seen that this season from Spurs, and that's the bit that if I were a Spurs fan or Ange Postecoglou would alarm me the most.
When we look at the back page of the Times, Liverpool stroll to Wembley is the headline. Spurs totally outclassed as Slot reaches final in first season. How significant is that, Mark, when you think about the legacy that Jurgen Klopp left, those big shoes to fill, that Arne Slot has reached a major tournament final in the Carabao Cup in his first season in charge?
Well, I think the biggest success that Slot's had is that nobody's talking about Jurgen Klopp now. And if you wind the clock back 6 months to when he left, they would never have imagined that within that period of time that Jurgen Klopp would be not a footnote, but he's forgotten about it. Nobody talks about him anymore because Arne Slot has come in and he's brought a calmness to Liverpool. He's made them better. They're obviously looking formidable right now. And I don't know if we're the first person to mention the Q word, but they are on for 4 trophies. And the way they're playing right now, it's going to be hard to see them being stopped in any competition. So, and that's down to Arne Slot and the players he's got at his disposal. Let's not forget, he's only brought in one player this season. That's Chiesa, who's barely played. So we talk about all these clubs that are looking for new signings and trying to replace the squad. He's come in with a squad that wasn't his and made it better. And I think, just go back to when David Moyes followed Sir Alex Ferguson with a team that was supposed to be getting on a little bit in years. And Liverpool have got that, I guess, Mo Salah, Van Dijk in the 30s. He's made them better. So Arne Slot has come in, made Liverpool better with a team that's not his. And they're in a final of a major competition, which obviously Klopp won last season. I think Liverpool they'll be favourites against Newcastle. I think, again, it's hard to see Newcastle beating a Liverpool team in this form. So he's done a brilliant job. And I think, I mean, we talk about this every year we get to February or March and teams are on for a treble or a quadruple. At some point, somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to win all 4 trophies. And I think right now, Liverpool are favourites to win the league because they've got a decent advantage. They're in the final of the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup. It's a similar situation. It's the Champions League, so it is hard, but they are a team that have got the ability to do it because they're better than anybody else right now.
So that's Arne Slot. Interestingly, the thing that was mentioned about Ange Postecoglou, he's mentioned it before, we've asked him tons about it since, it's been this whole win a trophy in the second season at a club. Jonathan, that would leave the FA Cup, where they take on Aston Villa on Sunday, and the Europa League. But right now, where does that leave Ange Postecoglou, given, as you said, that the fire going out of Spurs and ultimately his future at Tottenham short to medium term?
Well, the P45 is kind of a trophy, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how you define it. No, again, I don't. No, people kind of know what I think about Ange and his style of play and the risks that he's taken this season, not just in terms of tactics, but in terms of selection and players coming back from injury and all that. I don't know why Spurs have had so many injuries this season. I do know that when Liverpool were scouting for a new coach, they noticed Slot's injury record at final. In his last 2 seasons, they had over 90% player availability. They noticed that how well physically conditioned his side was, and they chose a manager partly on those criteria. I don't see or hear from him, Ange, I mean, any kind of solutions beyond. He's got one button basically, which is run harder, believe in it more, just believe in this project even harder, and the rewards will come. And I think this is the point in the season. And he's been backed a little bit in the transfer window. He has not got the squad that he wants. This squad does not have enough players in it. I don't think anyone disputes that. But I think we're also being asked to accept by, I think, an increasingly deranged coterie of mostly online people who are beginning to resemble a kind of cult that no other coach could have done any more with this team in this situation. It's the injuries, it's Levy, it's the players not wanting it. Like no other coach in the world, not Iraola, not Guardiola, not Slot, nobody could have done a better job. And I think it's an argument for sure, but I don't think it's one that any rational person has any business taking remotely seriously.
Mark, your thoughts on Ange Postecoglou? Has he just got the one button? Is he simply not sophisticated enough as a coach to manage this team and get the best out of them and do better than, what is it now? Tottenham are 14th in the table?
Yeah, I agree with Jonathan. I think he's coming to the end of the line, and it's obvious that he's had success elsewhere, and he's had success in Scotland, in Japan, Australia, And, wherever you're successful, great, you're the best person in that league. But it comes to the Premier League, which is the best league in the world. It's got the best coaches, the best players, and he's been found out. It's a level that he's not been able to step up to. And some of the stuff he's come out with this season, some of the excuses he's trotted out about, even people don't take him seriously because of his accent. I mean, that's rubbish. That's just not true. I don't know where he gets that from, but the mentality he has, this kind of everyone's wrong apart from him. It doesn't work, and the team doesn't work. And it's just, if you're a Tottenham fan, you're looking at this thinking, just put us out of our misery now. It's not happening. It's not successful. This thing about, I always win a trophy in my second season. Well, you're probably not going to win a trophy in the second season this year, because the FA Cup, you got Villa away at the weekend, tough game, probably lose. Europa League, again, I can't see Spurs beating anybody over 2 legs because they've got to go away from home at some point and beat somebody decent, and it's not going to happen. So I just think he's running out of excuses, and he gets the summer. If he gets that far, Spurs will have a new manager.
What about the final then? So Newcastle have this chance to end this ever so long wait. 1955 FA Cup, the last time that they won a domestic major trophy. The Cop final, as the Sun call it. Jonathan, how do they approach that occasion, given what we've seen tonight is what they're coming up against?
I think it's going to be an incredible final. I mean, Newcastle, obviously, with that massive trophy drought, they also have a pretty terrible record at Wembley. I think they've lost their last nine games there in all competitions, stretching back maybe half a century. So there is that huge emotional burden, that weight, which I think a lot of people around the club feel that they're in the mood to change history, to write a new chapter. But they're coming against probably the best team in the world at the moment. And I think if there's one word that kind of defines the slot era so far, it's been patience. It's patience in terms of playing style, in terms of tactics, patience from the fans and the hierarchy when maybe they've had a setback. And I think in the Wembley final, those kind of qualities are going to come to the fore. I think it's going to be really terrific because you got 2 teams with actually quite contrasting styles, and I think it's really going to be who can keep their heads together and handle the occasion.
What do you think the deciding factor will be, Mark?
Well, if Liverpool are at the best, Liverpool will win, and they are that good. But, Newcastle, you do feel sorry for Newcastle because, I mean, going back the last 50 years, like Jonathan said, all their major finals have been against the biggest clubs, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man United. They don't get an easy ride in a cup final. They always seem to have to win it the hard way, and they haven't done that so far. But, if Alexander Isak stays fit and he's still in form, I think that gives Newcastle a really good chance. But, Liverpool have got 4 or 5 Isaks, haven't they? Players that can score goals out of nothing. So I think it'd be great for Newcastle to win it. It'd be fantastic for the city, for the club to end that long drought. But I just think Liverpool have the edge at the moment. But like I say, Isak can win a game against anybody, so he's their secret weapon.
Yeah, not so secret, I suppose.
Oh,
now,
exactly.
As everyone has seen over the last few months. Yeah, March 16th, live on Sky Sports Main Event if you want to watch it. Thank you very much indeed for the moment, Jonathan and Mark. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will have a look at more sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Eye. I mean, he's now joined Villa on loan, but Ruben Amorim can't stop talking about Marcus Rashford. I could not get Rashford to work the way I wanted. We're back in a couple of minutes. You are watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to Jonathan New, sports writer for The Guardian, and also Mark Ogden, senior writer for ESPN. OK, gents, we're going to go to the back page of The Eye. And the story at the bottom of the page by Ian Whittle, which is Amorim, I could not get Rashford to work the way I wanted. Jonathan, let me start with you on this. So Marcus Rashford, on the day before deadline day, moved to Aston Villa on loan. And here is Ruben Amorim still talking about him. And do you feel this sort of this defence of his decision of Marcus Rashford? What does it say about Rashford? But ultimately, also, what does it say about Ruben Amorim? He seems a little just obsessed with the subject, don't you think?
Well, I think we know. Yeah, we know what it says about Rashford, and I think the relative lack of interest for a player with his CV in the January window, I think is a indication that a lot of the market seems to agree. I mean, we know that Rashford's pretty much playing for his career at Aston Villa. In terms of fitness, in terms of form, in terms of I guess hunger at the top level. I'm kind of slightly intrigued why Amorim is still going on about this. We know that he is a guy who likes to speak his mind. He likes to be quite forthright. But already in a few months, he's been forced to row back on quite a lot of things, which I think he would admit he probably shouldn't have said. The stuff about them being the worst United team ever, or the fact that everyone's jobs are on the line. And I think he's he's got a tendency for his tongue to get away with him a little bit. And you think back to what Alex Ferguson's mantra at United was. It was control, right? And control of the team, control of the playing style, control of the message. And Amorim has barely got a grip on. He's barely got control of things on the pitch, and I think he's totally losing control of the message.
Yeah, on that point, Mark, and it's a good one that you raised, Jonathan, about just how he's handling any media engagement, and whether it's in a private interview or whether it's something like a press conference. Amorim just keeps throwing out the sound bites. I mean, it wasn't just this one talking about Marcus Rashford, but fighting for his job till the end of the season. If we have a look at the back page of the Mirror, Amorim, I risked my job in the transfer window. So it's a gamble that Marcus Rashford leaves on loan, and Anthony, and they don't replace them. What do you make of the game that he's playing?
Well, he's being very, very honest, and he's being himself. But I think that may be a positive in many ways, the fact that he is what he is. But it's also a negative that he's got to manage the message a little bit more. There's an element of Jose Mourinho about him in terms of his bluntness, but Mourinho backed it up by winning games. And Amorim's won a lot in Portugal, but he's kind of translate the Portuguese approach from Sporting Lisbon to the Premier League, and the situation is totally different. He's at Man United, who are not doing very well, haven't been doing well for a long time. So that success that he had at Sporting can't be translated directly at United. I think he's finding it difficult. He's trying to use the same methods that work there when he's got a squad of players that he doesn't trust or don't yet buy into his methods. There's clearly a lot of the players there that he's not having whatsoever, because they don't play, or you can see him on the touchline. He's exasperated, he's frustrated, he shakes his head. It's very obvious what he thinks about certain players. So I think at some point he does need to rein it in. I've been at press conferences where he kind of laughs and says, I've said, I'm saying too much. Then he'll say something like, I'd rather put the goalkeeping coach on the bench than Marcus Rashford. So he can't help himself, but it will backfire, because that honesty is, he's been used, not used against him, but he's creating headlines. It's great for us, but he's creating too many headlines from his perspective. But, the Marcus Rashford thing, in fairness, he's being asked the question, he's answering it. A lot of managers would shut it down. He's answering the question, so I'm not going to criticise him for answering a question, but he probably does need to think about what he says sometimes, because this circus at Man United is just getting bigger and bigger, and the results aren't getting better, so it's going to get worse for him while this continues.
Just on, Mark, on the quote in the back page of The Sun, Rashford's Connect Floor is the headline by Martin Blackburn. He says, sometimes you have one player who is really good with one coach, and the same player with another coach is different. So, he's implying there, the player has to adapt to the coach. They have to adapt their game. They have to perform differently to reach the outcomes that the coach deserves. But is it always solely that way? How much does a coach need to adapt a bit to a player? I mean, how would you say that balances out? It can't just be the full one way, can it?
Well, in terms of Marcus Rashford, let's not forget he didn't perform under Erik ten Hag for the last 18 months. So it's not that he was performing great and suddenly he's not performing for Ruben Amorim. He scored the first goal of the Amorim reign at Ipswich, and it's all started so well. But, Marcus Rashford has not performed really. He's had one good run in the last 4 or 5 years, and I think it's time that United need to part ways with Marcus Rashford. I think Amorim has decided that he doesn't want to waste any more time, and I think if you ask most United fans, that they are backing him on Marcus Rashford. I think a lot of Man United fans are fed up with Rashford and there's lack of delivery. I think Amorim's taken a big call there, but if he does well at Aston Villa, his kind of refusal to budge on Rashford might actually backfire on him again. So, again, he's being himself. If it doesn't work for Man United, he can't say he did it any way but his own way. But he might have to temper that a little bit if he wants to, last long enough to be successful there.
Let's have a look at the back page of the Mail. Switch our focus to Arsenal, who say that, Arteta's go ahead for 3 big summer signings. It's a centre-forward, a versatile attacker and a midfielder. Well, I mean, that's, I suppose, a fair wish list, isn't it? And it would probably cost a fair amount of money, given the positions they play in. Jonathan, is that enough if they get those players to make them, again, genuine title contenders?
I think if they get the right players, I think if the recruitment is spot on in those 3 positions, I don't see any reason why they can't significantly improve Arsenal. I think the noises coming out of the club, certainly in January, were that they didn't want to jeopardise the business they might be able to do in the summer by splashing loads of cash on maybe a more short-term option in January. So that's very much the thinking, that they are still plotting ahead and not wanting to, they'd rather bring in no player at all than the wrong player for a certain position. So I think that remains the thinking.
Mark, your read on that, those 3 positions?
Well, we know they want Martin Zubimendi at Sociedad. They tried hard to get him in the window, but they've certainly lined up a move for him in the summer. He's a midfielder that a lot of clubs want, so that ticks that box. They definitely need a striker. Absolutely need a striker. I think, we're talking about, I think Benjamin Šeško's the guy they're going to go for at RB Leipzig. And I think, yeah, I mean, that's the obvious area they need to strengthen. But I think it's more than that at Arsenal. It's more of a mentality thing. I think we saw at the weekend the over-celebration for beating Man City and then falling away at Newcastle. It's a classic Arsenal trick, isn't it? That they over-celebrate victories but then fall away and it's crisis time when they don't get results. So I think the mentality needs to change a little bit as well as getting players in. So it's a double-pronged issue they need to resolve in the summer.
Let's move to your paper, Jonathan, and talk about England in their first ODI against India. And, I mean, it was only a 4-wicket defeat, but ultimately it didn't feel like it was that close, did it, this game? It felt like, India starting their run chase after about 10 overs. They were in control, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much England lost is not much of a headline these days. It's not much of a story across men's or women's cricket. I think we do need to cut them a little bit of slack. I mean, McCullum has basically just taken over the white ball setup, and they have gone to pretty much the toughest place in the world to play white ball cricket. I think there are people legitimately talking about this India side or this India squad as potentially one of the best white ball teams there's ever been, just because of the depth, because of the way they can substitute out players and seemingly bring in debutants who then settle instantly into the side. That depth of talent. And obviously the knowledge of home conditions in England, very much a side in transition. I mean, there are big problems in that side. I think there are problems with playing high-class spin. I think there are problems in the death overs, the 6, 7 and 8 positions. And I still think there are issues with Jofra Archer. I think he's still working his way back to full fitness. I'm not entirely sure he trusts himself physically at the moment, and that will come with time. So I think you've got two teams that are basically at very, very different moments in their arc, which is not just necessarily to say that England are going to improve, but I think that it is probably a little bit too early to judge them against this opposition in these conditions.
We're going to just do one more story, and Brendan, we'll only have time to go to you, Mark, on this, which is also in the back page of The Guardian. Shaw stays away, so City star Khadija Shaw pulling out of the League Cup semi-final over racial abuse. I mean, how sad is this story that the player has decided to take that decision on their own sort of shoulders, really, because of the abuse that they've suffered? What's your take on it, Mark? Yeah,
I mean, Bunny Shaw's one of the biggest stars in the WSL. She's a really tough cookie. She's had a lot to deal with in the past with the Jamaican FA. She's a real star, and she is a strong personality. But the fact that she's decided to pull out of this game just shows you how difficult it is for players to handle, racist abuse. I think, there may be other things going on in the background at the moment, but, for a player of her stature, of her strength of character to say enough is enough, it's a real message. And I think, fair play to Bunny for taking that stand.
Yeah, that one, as I say, in the back page of The Guardian. And thank you very much indeed, both to Jonathan New and to Mark Ogden for their company this evening. Look, if you missed any of the show, well, there's another chance to see back pages tonight, 1:30. The show also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Join us again Friday night. Our guest will be Sam